Hello there. This is Michele LaRue, actress and editor. I'm being interviewed by the ever-ebullient Rabbi Sol Solomon for Days Gone By on UNC Radio. Oh, hi, I'm Rabbi Sol.
Oh, shalom, my friends. This is your old pal, Rabbi Sol Solomon, founder and spiritual leader of Temple Sons of Bitches in Great Neck, New York. And I am thrilled and delighted to be talking to a writer and an actress. Now, I know what it is to do a one-person show. I don't know what it is to do a one-woman show. I'm not going to get the surgery to find out. But we will find out today because Michele LaRue is known for doing solo performances like the Yellow Wallpaper, Tales Well Told, Someone Must Wash the Dishes. We'll talk about that. And then also she has a new one called The Bedquilt, Two Tales from America's Gilded Age, which is happening on this Wednesday, February 21st at 6 o'clock at the Cornelia Street Cafe in the Village. So we want to talk about her work and doing solo shows as well as her years editing and proofreading and working for various theater journals. Should be a really interesting conversation with our guest, Michele LaRue. Shalom, Michele.
Shalom, Sol.
Now, let me ask, and I ask this of pretty much everybody, most important question, is there any Jew in you?
Oh, actually, there is.
Where?
My
Like your
father's
foot?
mother, but I didn't know this until I was already totally wasped in college.
So anyway, so you brought up not even knowing that there was some Hebraicness in your background, and then one day somebody in your family said, oh, by the way?
No, my dad, I think he sort of explained. Because they came over in the very late 1900s. Her father was in disgrace and changed his name. And I think they just found it a bad time to have a German name, much less Jewish German.
Oh, so wait, what was the name there? What was the surname?
Well, they came over, they were Bloch in Germany
Bloch.
and Switzerland, and when they came here, they suddenly were Wartmann.
Wartmanns.
Yeah, don't ask me why.
No, the men who Wart, I guess it would
Yeah,
be.
I have no idea where that came from.
And the rest of you is French? Is that the deal?
A great many Huguenots on both sides.
Is it Huguenot or Huguenot? What the hell is that?
Well, I think in French it's Huguenot.
Ah, there you go. And wouldn't you know that? Oh, that's terrible. I'm busting your chops over a pronunciation because my friend Dave, who hosts this radio program, has known you for many, many years. And, you see your name. It's Michele LaRue. Michele LaRue. It's sort of like a stripper name, to be honest. But, well, I'm sorry. It's Michele. It's like you should have tassels on your boobies or something. Or at least on your pen.
Mom's name was LaRue.
Whose
friends came back from New Orleans and swore they had seen her name on a marquee.
There you go. But wait a minute. But you also pronounce, even though there's an accent on the first E in Michele, you have to do the I thing, like Michele LaRue. Why is that? Michele. Now, you're an American, goddammit. Pronounce it like a human being. Michele, not Michele. Michele. For crying out loud.
Pronounce it pretty much however you want.
I'm angry now, but I still want to talk to you. But now, first of all, when did you get the acting bug?
Well, I remember that when I was a Brownie Scout, we had a play, and I think I played the father. And I wasn't one of those kids who sold tickets and made up plays every summer, but I think by junior high and certainly in high school, I was really, really active. It turns out I had the most hours of anybody in, I think, the last 50 years or something of the history of my high school.
Most hours on stage, or you're doing theater stuff?
Backstage and on stage. And
so what were some of the parts that you had back in high school? Do you remember?
Yeah. In Dear Brutus, I played a little girl. Dear Brutus is a James Barrie play about what might have been. And there's a character who's an artist, is very unhappy with his wife, and in the life that might have been, he has a sweet little girl.
Oh, my.
And I did Liza in Pygmalion my senior year.
Ooh. Oh, no wonder, because on your resume, you list all these different accents that you can do.
I'm not facile with dialects, but I'm very careful about studying them. So, yeah, there are quite a few.
Well, you mentioned a couple of them, so I'm going to test you. I'm going to put you to the test here. Tell me something in Cockney.
Oh, Lord.
That was great.
I don't know what to say quite yet.
All right. What about Scottish?
I haven't done that one for a long time. I'm afraid to do that in public.
Okay, but I get Cockney. Cockney's pretty common. And Scottish, if you do Macbeth, you gotta know that one, probably.
Mm-hmm.
You got French in your background, so give me some sexy French.
Oh, I do not know exactly how to say this. What is it you want to know?
Okay, I hear it.
Got a little German in there.
Yeah, well, the France had a few Germans in it for a while. So
my people were Alsace-Lorraine, so it kept flopping back and forth.
There you go. But here's the other one. This one is actually on your resume. And French, Cockney, Scottish, Danish. With all due respect, who the fuck speaks Danish? What?
That was for one show. I don't think I could do that anymore.
Well, it's on your resume. You have to. Somebody's going to call you in.
But I would have time to practice.
Steven Spielberg will be doing a movie. And he's like, I don't have anybody who speaks Danish or can fake speaking with a Danish accent. Oh, let's bring this girl in here, Michele LaRue. Oh, she speaks Danish, perhaps. And then you get in there and you can't do it. I am disappointed.
I can because I've had time between the call.
But so how long does it take you? If, let's say, I'm sure you've done other accents in plays. Let's say it's an accent you've never done before. How long does it take you to buckle down, study, get Berlitz tapes or whatever you do to get a handle on it?
I could do it in an afternoon if I needed to, but I'd rather have several days to, really get it. It's a lot about placement in your mouth. So
that's what she said.
Finding that and getting used to it.
So what is the last accent that you've done in a show?
Well, the Bedquilt is New England.
Ooh.
And then I'm very comfortable with sort of a general Virginia area, Southern.
Okay, do me a favor. Teach the listeners at home. All right, pick a word that specifically sounds New England-esque, and teach us how we would say that, as opposed to the way I would say it in my Great Neck ease, or other people who have their Brooklyn or New Yorkie accents. So what would be a word that's in there that you specifically pronounce in a New Englandy way?
Okay, hold on. Dead air.
That didn't sound New Englandy at all.
No, it wasn't. I'm just worrying about keeping you waiting.
Yeah, I figured something with popping your head there.
Yeah. Aunt Mehetable was certainly the most unimportant member of the Elwell family.
I do hear a little Kate Hepburn in there, and a little bit of that patrician. So what are you doing?
It's in the very back and upper part of your throat. If you thought of your windpipe as going vertically, and then it sort of begins to curl forward, it's at the joint there.
Okay, I'm already lost.
Hi.
Are you cutting off vowels? Are you shortening the vowels in a way?
Yeah, it's optional, especially when you get very rural. You can cut off the ing.
You wouldn't be cutting off INGs in the north. That'd be the south, or am I wrong on that?
No, in New England you can too. There's a couple similarities, but don't ask me what they are. I just remember there are, and if I got going, I'd know. The Y becomes sort of a short I, 40.
40.
40, and the...
Te. Forte.
Yeah, and Forty would be 40.
Forte. Forte. Yeah. Oh, I just make a farte in my pants. Oh, that's not good. We're talking with Michele LaRue here. She is an actress. She has a resume where we're looking at the bottom of it also. And again, this is like other people they can list can drive a car, have a hack license, unicycle, juggling perhaps. You mentioned both croquet and badminton.
I was desperate. I am not a sportive person.
Okay, but you've played those. You can fake it?
Yes, I have.
Are you sure you're not a DACA from the United Kingdom or something? How does croquet... Don't you just lean over and go puck with this mallet thing?
Pretty much, yeah.
Well, I can put that on my resume.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to fake something serious like, I can ride a horse.
Oh, good point.
You can put something on there that, you could learn very quickly, or you used to do.
That's fair. So it's not really lying, but stretching the truth so you get the job.
I never encourage lying on a resume. When I was editing it backstage, I was asked to review how to market yourself book. The author encouraged people to lie on their resumes, and I sent him, I believe, a polite but curt note explaining why I was not going to recommend that book.
Let's say you lie on the resume, and you get the job, in part because you lied. Worst thing that could happen is they get you in, you get paid for a couple of weeks, you can't do the gig, and they fire you. That's the worst case scenario. Best case is you fake your way through it or you learn on the job. So what is so terrible about lying on a resume?
Well, you're more likely to be caught in advance, especially if you say that you worked with so-and-so never heard of you.
Oh, well, yeah.
And I'm not a good liar. There's a difference between acting and lying. They're not the same.
What's the difference?
Well, I suppose a good liar is a good actor, but I don't act off stage. When you're on stage, you're invested in a character and that character's beliefs and desires and needs, and they may be totally unreal to your own life, but they're real on stage.
An actor is actually, in a way, always telling the truth.
Yes, he's telling the character's truth. Exactly. Very precise.
Unless the character's lying. Ho-ho!
That's a possibility.
I am so meta. I've never met anybody as meta as I am, let me tell you. Back in the days when you weren't doing so much of your own solo work, but acting in other people's plays, what's a part that you got that you were surprised you got?
I guess it's the one with the Danish accent, because
well, there you go.
I'm used to being cast as a nice person. This was, the play is The Poetry of Pizza.
The Poetry of Pizza, okay.
And it was at Centenary Stage, and I've just lost the author's name.
It's probably Jürgen Hertha-Hagerbergen, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm very sorry, I just lost her name. Maybe it will come back. But the character is agoraphobic, and...
Actually, that was the character's name. It was Jürgen Hertha-Agoraphobic. It was.
It was actually, in my resume, I call her agoraphobic. I think it was Inga.
Okay. But and you were shocked, but you got the role, which is kind of...
Yeah, because she's a very harsh, not warm woman. And sort of at the very end of this half-fantasy kind of thing, she warms up.
I want to ask Michele LaRue, in terms of... Let's go back 30 years, let's say, or 40 years. Okay. Did you ever go up for off-Broadway or Broadway parts? Did you ever do the real grind of getting, literally, backstage newspaper, opening it up on a Wednesday morning and just...
Oh, yeah.
What are some shows you tried out for?
Oh, names are running away from me again. Nope, can't tell you that one because I can't remember her name.
Okay.
I honestly don't remember. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. But you did that. How long did you do that grind?
I did it from when I moved to the area from Chicago. I was born in Chicago and lived in the suburbs, grew up in the suburbs. Went to school in Kansas. Then I followed my husband. I'm going to stop saying late husband. You got the idea. I followed my husband to Princeton, where he had a job for the National Endowment for the Humanities.
Ooh.
And I was coming in and auditioning all the time then, but I was very young and very Midwestern and so polite, I was totally uninteresting to most people. The job that got me my equity card was a musical review called Jerz, Jerz, that was about all the nice things in New Jersey. And
wow, it must have been 5 minutes long. I'm kidding. I'm joking.
This is one show that got Nathan Lane his start back in the days when his name was Joe.
Wait, whoa!
Yeah.
So you were in that show with young Nathan Lane?
We toured for quite a few weeks.
Could you tell at that point?
Yes.
You could tell he was genius.
I thought, unless something goes terribly wrong, this guy's going to make it. He was always on stage. I mean, not in a bad way, but he just couldn't turn it off. It was there.
Wow. Who are other people that you knew and acted with back in the day that we know now? Well,
J.O. Sanders. He did a show for my husband when we were all in Lancaster at the Fulton Opera House for a very short-lived, actually one-season summer company. Warren brought the show in pieces of it to audition for Jay Harnick. Is Jay Harnick Fiddler on the Roof?
Well, Sheldon Harnick.
Sheldon, okay, his brother Jay.
Who is a friend of the neighborhood, by the way. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, Mr. Jay Harnick decided that the show was, he couldn't quite figure out the format, and then he didn't think Jay was very good.
Oh.
Yeah, so I don't know if J.O. Sanders remembers that, but if he does, I'm sure he can laugh very hard.
Most actors never forget that kind of a thing. Do you remember your worst audition?
No, there were probably too many.
All right.
I was young. I was just too shy. And I came back after Warren died. I started seriously auditioning again, and I had a wonderful audition coach who has also since died, Cliff Goodwin. He was head of New Dramatists in the late 60s.
Oh.
He knew and worked with everybody. He worked with Jimmy Jones, James Earl, and he worked with Al Pacino and anybody then. And he just sort of decided, I guess, to back off. But he was an extraordinary audition coach.
Well, let me ask you. You had already done a lot of auditioning before, then you acted a lot. So what did he teach you? What did you learn from having an audition coach that you didn't know from many, many times? Go in, say the name, recite the piece that you've recited for a minute, thank them very much, and get off the stage. What did he coach you and teach you to do?
Well, you need to really see your imaginary acting partner, and you never want that partner to be the person you're actually auditioning in front of, because that's horribly embarrassing for that person, and that person isn't going to respond in the way you can make your imaginary character respond. So it really helps to, if you're a very visual actor and you can actually see this person. And Cliff gave me a couple of hints on how to do that. The main thing is, and another thing is, he looked for variety in your 2 or 3 minute piece. Nothing dishonest, but there are ways to give the auditor a lot of different notes rather than just one.
That makes a lot of sense, honestly. Because, 3 minutes can feel like a blink of an eye, or it can feel, 3 minutes is actually a very long time.
Yes.
So you can put a lot in. If you've got a 3 minute audition. Are auditions still that long? I thought you do like a minute and a half now. Or are they still like 3 minutes?
Oh, I fell out of auditioning about 2 years ago. Gosh, maybe it's more, because every time I looked at the schedule, there was a conflict with the show that I had already booked of my own material.
Ooh.
When I went back to putting acting first after 10 years of backstage newspaper, I thought I could do the one-person shows and do work with other people. But it's two separate professions, and they're both terribly time-consuming.
Well, the one-person show, you kind of have to be chief cook and bottle washer, not only creatively in putting the play itself together and rehearsing acting, but then are you your own engine driver in terms of getting gigs?
I'm my own everything. I do the research that leads me to the people to promote myself to. Then I answer the questions of anybody who's shown any interest. I do the contracts, the tech sheet. Luckily I'm a writer and I really enjoy it. So I do the promotional materials. I do what the company manager would do.
Well, but here's a question. So,
yes.
You've been in New York for a lot of years. You were also in Chicago early on. But, you do some of your shows in New York, but you're also going to be in New Jersey fairly soon.
Well, I live in New Jersey.
Oh, you live in there? Oh, so you know New Jersey, too. All right. But
just across the Hudson. I'm in Secaucus.
Wow, Secaucus. I love saying the word. Could you say that word again?
Secaucus.
See, this is unbelievable. Normal people will say Secaucus.
Yes,
but Michele LaRue has to say Secaucus.
No, it's Indian.
No, it's retarded. Is what
I try to pronounce them correctly.
Okay, fair. But let me ask you.
Native American, I should say.
You're also going to be doing your play, the Bedquilt, in Washington State.
Yes.
In a few weeks. So
yes,
how do you
doing 4 different programs. I think it's a total of 10 performances in 10 days, but it may be one of those is 2 performances in a day, so I'm not sure. It's something like that.
But it's one thing to live in New Jersey and know New Jersey and contact, say, a civic center or a library, or a senior center, or a theater, or a music place, and say, hey, are you interested in the show, etc. But how do you go to a state where you have very little connection and book and get in there?
Okay, well, I base it on if I know anybody there. This is what my husband, Warren Kliewer, used to call Mennoniting your way around the country.
Okay.
He was raised a Mennonite, and that's how they were able to travel, was just staying with other Mennonites. If you want to be more literary, I call it Lily Barting my way around the country, in a nod to Edith Wharton.
Okay.
But it's basically, I have several high school and college friends in Washington State, and my brother's family.
Oh.
So several people, when I was out there visiting, said, you should really try to get a booking at a library here, because this is one of the most literate cities in the country. So I did that, and I found out that the libraries are very popular, but they're very popular because people read there.
As opposed to...
The first year I was out there, no libraries booked me, but a lot of quilting guilds did.
Oh.
So I did 6 performances of the Bedquilt. And then the next time I was due out, one librarian expressed interest, and she gave me 4 bookings. And this year she gave me, I think, 9.
Hey.
She is the most extraordinary booking agent. I wish she would do it for a living. She found the library branches. She found a good route. She told me how long it took to get from one to the other. She suggested hotels.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's just heaven.
But here's the deal. I mean, if you stay to the Northeast, do you drive? Do you have a car? You're in Jersey. You must.
Yeah.
So if you need to get to a place in Jersey or Connecticut or even Manhattan, there's other ways. It's boom, you're in the car, you go, you unpack, you do your show.
Yep.
But is there any way to make this thing work, or have you gone far afield to other states where you physically have to take a plane or an Amcrash?
I fly to Washington State, and I've flown to Michigan. I had a booking. Yeah, it's a little difficult packing, or you have to be sure to check things, and I'm always afraid to check something that I'm going to need to wear, because I found out that doesn't always work years ago.
Can you make the numbers work? Let's say when you went to Michigan, right? I mean, let's say you got to pay for, you got to get to the airport, pay for the plane, get to book a hotel, because there maybe you're not staying with family or friends. How on earth? I mean, you can consider it a vacation. But
my other friends who have one-person shows think that I'm charging way too little. In the case of the Michigan performance, that organization has booked me 5 times, I think, and they're for-profit. So the accommodations and the travel are paid for.
Whoa!
Yeah, and the library is paying, not for my plane fare, but they're paying a lower fee out there, but it makes up for that by paying my accommodations and my mileage.
The library's found you a place to stay?
Yeah.
Whoa.
And when I first started in the business, right after college, I toured the Midwest. I toured 230 schools. We had 230 performances, mostly schools, 3 shows a day, 5 days a week around the Midwest in a car. And in those days, it was very long ago, we would get a motel, each of us got a motel room for $7 or $9. But when I look at the library saying, sure, I recommend this hotel, I don't care if it's $150, it's like a gift.
Okay, I get you.
It makes up for all those many more bookings that think that my fee is too high for them. Could I please move it down?
I gotcha.
So, my bookers are nonprofits, and most of those are libraries.
Right, and a lot of times libraries, they'll just, you're lucky they'll give you space.
Yeah.
And then you can charge something, and whoever comes.
No, most libraries, it's in their guidelines that they may not charge. So the libraries book my performance for a fee, And it doesn't matter to me how many people show up for that.
Oh, and which is good because that means you don't have to spend money and too much time promoting. You show up, you do the show. If there's 3 people there, who cares? You got your check.
Yep, I send them promotional materials that I've written. And I usually offer to proofread those because I do that. And and they need it. And then whatever they do with that, I don't have time, and it's of no financial benefit to me to make sure that they use them in the best way possible.
Now, you are doing all of this, and at least, at the very least, breaking even, but probably doing a little better than that. But you also do proofreading, right? And you also edit and stuff like that?
I haven't edited anything. Hold on 1 second, please.
Sure.
I think it's been a couple years since I edited a book.
Oh, okay.
And most of my proofreading has been my own stuff. I love editing. In a way, it's much like performing or even directing, because you get somebody's copy and you want it to be concise and clear and keep moving to have energy, but you don't want to change the writer's voice.
Right.
The last 3 or 4 projects I did were for the writers. I'm very collaborative, and the writers very much appreciate that, and I enjoy that, but publishers aren't happy about it because it takes more time.
Oh, speaking of writers, you just reminded me that one of the people whose books you have worked on is a friend of the neighborhood, a guy named Lloyd Burlingame.
Oh, Lloyd, yes.
Well, he was on our program in 2015.
Oh, he was? I didn't see that. I will look that up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he can't look it up because he's blind, which is probably one of the reasons he needed you to I can't believe I said that.
He's amazing on a computer, though. He has a voice computer, and he's a good writer. He hired me to do his second book, which is about his 2 dogs.
Right.
Now he's on his 3rd dog now. The second is retired, and the first has died.
But mit Mazel, he was, I think, was he a designer, and then he lost his sight, and now he...
Yeah, it's an hereditary sort of. It sounds like the symptoms are similar to macular degeneration. You lose your peripheral vision. And I haven't seen him for at least a year, but he could still see a little, and
oh, okay.
write his name and some very, very brief notes.
And oddly enough, he works on an eye macular. That's terrible. I don't even...
Yeah.
That's just...
Kind
shame on me. We're talking with Michele LaRue, who is writer, actress. She's going to be doing her... We haven't even really talked what the Bedquilt is about. It's called Two Tales from America's Gilded Age. It's happening on Wednesday evening at the Cornelia Street Cafe in the Village. So tell us, I mean, you do a lot of adapting as opposed to writing solo shows that are just out of thin air.
Yes, very little adapting is needed. The reason I do performances from roughly the Gilded Age, which is specifically in literature circles, the Gilded Age begins with the Civil War and ends at World War I. Most of my performances are 1880 to maybe 1913.
Yeah, why is that your wheelhouse?
Well, it goes way back. My husband Warren founded the East Lynne Company in 1980 to revive plays and literature that basically predate Eugene O'Neill. With Eugene O'Neill, everybody decided that everything before him was melodrama and no good. But there's an enormous breadth of material in that period. And you find performances of a lot of this material these days at Metropolitan Playhouse in Manhattan.
Yes.
They do them beautifully. One thing we started doing in order to promote our shows was we would have fundraisers that were like old-fashioned salon in people's apartments. They would provide the guests and some food, and we would describe the company and do a reading of a short story. And that's when I realized from Warren that these short stories are they're written for the ear, not the eye, he always used to say.
Actually, I don't want to pull you off track, but I'm going to.
Right.
Have you seen the Broadway show with John Lithgow doing 2 stories, one of them by Ring Lardner, I think is one. Have you seen it?
No, I have not seen it, but I know of it.
Okay. I was going to ask you what you thought of that of his, but I can't, so continue. You discovered these kinds of shows or these kinds of stories lend themselves to performance.
Yeah, they were written at a time when people still didn't have radio, much less television and computers, and they made their own entertainment at home. And part of that entertainment was reading aloud, sometimes for real company, and sometimes just when the women are sewing. The authors knew that they were very oral. A-U-R-A.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Coming back to using the throat tube again. Yeah. Don't even know what that means.
Yeah, and they just wrote these little playlets. They're not, a lot of modern work tends to be convoluted and inward. These are not. They're simple, rarely convoluted, and the verbs and adjectives and adverbs are spare, but really right on. Energetic.
Spoken like an editor, let me tell you. A lover of the English language, for sure. We haven't even mentioned, you mentioned it, but we didn't discuss, back when Dave of this program knew you, you were a senior editor.
I was.
At Backstage Newspaper. So, was there a sense in your soul that when you took the job, be honest, that really it was just a way of getting closer to the auditions and all of that, and you'd stay for a year, and then the big acting job would take you away?
No, I gradually grew into it. I was, continually auditioning, but as one always does, one has other skills. So I probably worked in 3 or 4 theaters on Theater Row, doing organizing and some graphic artwork and a little bit of playwriting, writing, publicity stuff. And I also was head of a committee at Equity that hosted a series of craft discussions. And we had Franny Sternhagen and Raul Julia, many people. And I used to write those up for Equity News. And when they ran out of room, Helene Feldman, the longtime editor there, suggested I talk to Sherry Eager about getting my work published there. And Sherry took it up, and then I started proofreading part-time. And at one point I was hired for being too careful in my proofreading.
Whoa, excuse me, whoa. Did you say fired with an F?
Yes, I did. I said fired. In the old days, before computers, the way you make a correction, we would have hot wax, and the type would be on a heavy paper stock, glossy paper, and you ran it through the hot wax machine and plopped it on the layout. And if I found a typo, I was very facile at typing even one letter and replacing it accurately. But the office manager thought that was taking an awful lot of time that was a waste. And I'm probably oversimplifying it, but that was my take on the firing. And then a few years later, I started freelancing again as proofreader, editor, and then Sherry Eager.
So you had no hard feelings?
Nah.
Wow.
No.
Whoa.
It didn't take it was one of many jobs I had.
Huh.
Back full-time.
Yeah.
For, I get me 10 years and moved my way up the ladder of editors.
Right.
And I'm still close to several of those people. And Sherry Eager, the editor's real strength was gathering a great group of people who were really skilled and dedicated and cooperative. It was a great bunch of people to work with.
Yeah, and by the way, as long as you're going back and listening to old episodes of the Dave's Got My Radio program, Sherry Eager has been a guest in the neighborhood too. So
okay.
All these wonderful people have been on this program, including.
Really impressed when I saw the list.
You should be, goddammit.
Both of you have been doing this so long.
Well, where have you been for 15 years? We've been on the air. Suddenly you discover us?
I've been on my computer looking for work.
Oh, okay. Now wait a minute. Are you comfortable, or do you still have to work?
Comfortable in what way?
Paying your rent, eating, showering occasionally.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks to my husband. Yeah.
Oh, and what he? Yeah. Oh, but wait a minute. He ran a theater company. There's no money in that.
He did, but when I met him, he was a college professor, so there are some pensions, and he was my mentor. So much of what I'm doing and earning is really because of what I learned from him and his confidence in me.
Well, you bring him up a lot for obvious reasons.
I do. Yes, I do.
And not to get too deep or heavy or anything, but how long ago did he pass?
Actually, it will be 20 years, July 29th.
So he was relatively young, I assume.
He was older than I. We were married 27 years.
How did you...
But now that I'm as old as he was, I see how even much younger he was to die too soon. So...
Did it take you, to get over that, to go beyond that extraordinary grief? How did you pull yourself out of that?
Well, I hadn't really known any. I'd lost grandparents, but I was an adult then and they lived far away. A spouse is entirely different. I had counseling through cancer care. The first year for me was realizing that I was an I, not a we. And the second year was trying to figure out who I was. And the third year was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I think the fourth year for me was when I started coming into my own.
Wow.
But it's different for everybody. There's no one way or one timeline for grieving. And you have to really trust your instinct.
Well, you can see Michele LaRue herself being herself, and actually these other characters that she is doing in The Bedquilt, Two Tales from America's Gilded Age. It's happening on Wednesday night, 6 o'clock at the Cornelia Street Cafe. And by the way, she's not just doing this one show at Cornelia Street. As I said, she's going to New Jersey, God help her. She's also going to Washington. You gotta keep track of all the things that she's doing. And how do we do that? We go to her website, MicheleLaRue.com, and there's supposed to be an accent on the E, but you don't put accents on when you're doing a website thing. It's Michele with one oh God, it's going to take me forever to do this. Michele. So there's only one L there, but then you get another L for LaRue. LaRue. MicheleLaRue.com. And let me ask you, if people want to get in touch with you, like somebody's listening who works at a library or a conference center or a bed quilting society.
Yes.
How do they contact you? What do they do?
All right. This is I'll give my phone number and my email. My phone is 201 in New Jersey, 863-6436.
Say it again.
201-863-6436. And my email address, which is very clever if you know French, but is very tedious if you don't, is RUE, D as in David, ELARUE, at good old-fashioned Gilded Age AOL.com.
Wow. So it's like Rue de la Rue. It's like the street of you or something like that.
It's the street of the street, yeah.
Street of the street. Oh, Rue de la Rue. At good old-fashioned AOL.com, which exists for probably one more year before they go under. Rue de la Rue at AOL.com. Last question or two for Michele.
I do want to backtrack since I've brought up my husband so often.
Yeah.
You can find information about him at the East Lynn Theater Company website, and his last name is Kliewer, Kliewer. Kliewer.
So the East Lynn Theater Company has moved, is still around.
Oh, yeah. It's run now by Gail Stahlhuth, Stahlhuth.
These names are killing me here.
Cape May.
Yeah. But she's running this in Cape May, East Lynn Theater Company that...
And there are touring shows. I tour through them also.
Oh, wonderful. Now, when you create a new piece, because we mentioned these others that you've done. The Yellow Wallpaper you did a lot. Someone Must Wash the Dishes from 1912, which you've done more than 250 times across 16 states. Are you your own director, or do you get another pair of eyes to watch you once you're up on your feet?
Warren directed The Yellow Wallpaper. He also directed Someone Must Wash the Dishes, and then a wonderful actress named Elaine Bromka, Bromka, who does a splendid show I've seen 5 times called T43. Elaine did some brush-up work with me on that one, and she also did some brush-up work on Eve's Diary, with me. Eve's Diary is full out blocked, as was Yellow Wallpaper, and as is Someone Must Wash the Dishes. Most of my other performances are what we used to call oral interpretation that nobody knows anymore. But I push the envelope on oral interpretation. I'm very physical and fully invested. It's not just getting up and reading a book.
Well, when we think of oral interpretation, if our mind doesn't go straight to the gutter, I'm thinking in terms of like kids who dress up as Abraham Lincoln for Chautauqua.
Oh, no, that's not oral interpretation.
Oh, so what is oral interpretation?
Well, oral interpretation is you in a book, and in my case, a music stand, because I use my whole body, and who wants to be holding a book? It's a kind of one-person show. You're doing all the different characters and the narrators, and each narrator from one story to another has a different personality. And in order to do that, you want to get rid of the adjectives and the adverbs in the text, because you're going to show those.
Oh.
And you get rid of a lot of the verbs, he said, she said. And it's just very dynamic and versatile, and you get to play with different physicalizations, different vocal placements, different dialects. It's wonderful. I love this material. It is so dramatic.
Well, are you working on any...
The story is a one-act play.
Are you working on any new thing? Well, new old things, I should say.
I have about 30 in my repertoire.
Gewalt.
Yeah, not all of them have been requested. I would very much like to do, and I think I'll offer it, Mary E. Wilkins Freeman, Freeman, a New England writer, who did the show, the little story I'm doing as a curtain raiser for the Bedquilt at the Cornelia Street Cafe. She was what we used to call a local colorist. She wrote about, I think she's New Hampshire, little town people. And I totally forget where I was going with that.
Oh, I was just asking you if that, dipping into creating a new piece.
Yes.
But and then you said you have 30 old pieces.
She's written a short story that, for anyone who knows her, it's one of the better-known ones, called The Revolt of Mother, which, by the way, J.O. Sanders did on PBS years ago.
I love how everybody is sort of interconnected in a way.
I do, too. I love the small world of the theater.
Well, last question. For our new friend in the small but growing world of the neighborhood, what is one of the funniest anecdotes of you that you would have of you doing a show, doing one of your solos, let's say, interacting with audience members, something weird, something bad happened, live theater? What?
I'll give you a couple.
Ooh.
I'll start with a recent one, and then I'll finish with a very old one. I was doing Someone Must Wash the Dishes, 1912. I always tell the sponsor that I need a lavalier mic if I need to be mic'd at all, because it's 1912 and we didn't have those ugly mics. And there are no other electronics. And the sponsor's introduction reminds people that they're visiting a time when electronics did not intrude on performance.
Right.
But this one lady got a phone call in the middle of the show. I was performing on a stage, which is rare. When you're going to a library or a historical society or a women's club, you don't often have a stage. And this woman actually walked up the stage right aisle from the audience aisle to the backstage, to the stage right wings in order to take her call. And then when she was done, she walked back again.
Well, she's lucky you weren't Patti LuPone.
Yes, she was. And another one called just as, there's a wonderful bit in this show. It's very witty. Someone Must Wash the Dishes is an anti-suffrage monologue, satire, written by a pro-suffragist named Marie Jenny Howe, who knew all the arguments and used them to undercut each other, but she does it never in a mean way. And there's one point where the character illustrates one reason women should stay at home. They've invented the telephone. And a woman can stay at home and answer the telephone. And at that point, somebody's cell phone rang. That one was fun.
That kind of works to your advantage. That's like a beautiful sort of moment. What's the one that's really goes back years?
This goes back to the tour I mentioned of the Midwest when I first got out of school.
Yeah.
We were performing in schools, and it was just I and another guy doing a review. And at the end of the performance, and many of these were consolidated schools where we'd be in a gym, or a gymnatorium, and we'd be performing from first grade through high school. And at the end of the show, all these kids would come up and say, "Please, can I have your autograph?" Oh. And then it would take us a while to pack up and say goodbye and maybe have a school lunch. And we'd walk through the parking lot, and scattered along the way were all these autographs. Oh. And that's where I learned humility.
Why do you think? What was the point then?
I don't know. You know, luck. I mean, I think it's flattering that we got them so excited about us that they took the autographs, and then maybe they forgot about them or decided, what am I going to do with this? Or
maybe a cyclone.
It was just the act of talking to us.
Maybe they were hit with a cyclone. It took the autographs out of their hands, whipped them across the parking lot, and that's fame is fleeting, my friends. But not the fame of the person we've been talking to, Michele LaRue. Go see her on Wednesday night at the Cornelia Street.
Wednesday night, the 21st.
The 21st of February at the Cornelia Street Cafe. MicheleLaRue.com for more information. All I have left to say to you, Michele, is thank you so much for being with us in the neighborhood, and shalom to you. Or I would say shalom to you.
Thank you, Rabbi Sol. Bye-bye.